Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the All Portable Discussion Zone. It's a bi-weekly, not so live stream anymore. We're just doing recordings. And my name is Charlie. Call sign is November Juliet 7 Victor, and I'm happy to be with you this morning. We have our first guest of 2026, Season 5, Episode 1, and that is my good friend here, Fred, KT5X, who we'll be introducing to you here in just a minute. Just a reminder that this podcast will be released every 2 weeks on Sunday about 2300 UTC. We'll have guests just like Fred and others, and we will also continue with some of the roundtable discussions. So I'm interested in the comments that you may leave below, and make sure that you share your thoughts with us, and we'll try to get back to you and answer any questions that you have about this podcast. So without any further introduction, I think we're good to go. Fred, welcome to the show, and why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit and tell us about yourself?
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you for having me on. I've been a CW operator since 1958, was introduced to it when I was 12 years old. And pretty soon, uh, talking Morse code was pretty natural to me. I got up to about 55 words a minute. And I can tell you why if you want later on why I can't copy above 55. I know why. Anyhow, I've done a lot of contesting. I've done a lot of traffic handling, which is exchange of messages before there were cell phones. And more recently, I've gotten into summits on the air, and I've done over 1,000 peaks.
Okay, great, great. That's interesting. So yeah, so you got into more to the hobby with Morse code, it sounds like. So yeah, tell us why can't you copy over 55? By the way, I can't. I mean, I have friends who can copy at high speeds like that, but I'm right around 25, 30 words a minute myself right now. So you pushed yourself to copy even more than that. So what's the story behind that one?
Well, I can tell you exactly what's going on with your limitation as well.
Okay.
Um, Learning Morse code is in stages. The first stage is to memorize the code for the letters. And at that point, Morse is in your short term memory, your lookup memory, and you're searching for it after you hear it. Um, if you keep doing this, sooner or later, it changes to long term memory. And this happens in your sleep, and you can't force it, but to encourage it, the more frequently you use the code, the quicker that will happen. Once it moves into long-term memory, you can go from 10 words a minute to up to about 18 words a minute. That's why the general code test was at 13, because you now had it in your permanent memory. To move it from permanent memory into the language area of your brain, uh, that requires continued frequent use. And after that, you're hearing a sound which is a letter, and your language is, a portion of your brain is interpreting it. And that's where you are with it right now. Right around 26 words a minute is the next plateau. And to get over that plateau, what happens is instead of hearing individual letters, you're actually hearing syllables that turn into words. And at that point, at the stage that you're at, what you want to do is lean back in the chair, put the pencil down, close your eyes, and just listen to the guy who's sending beautiful code like W1AW does is a good way to do it. And all of a sudden, you'll be hearing what he's saying instead of interpreting code anymore. After that, the next thing that stops you is what's called the Haas effect. It's spelled HAAS, and it's a built in echo suppressor. This echo suppressor says, gee, if I hear exactly the same sound within a very short time period, like 20 milliseconds, which is the length of a dit and the length of a space at 60 words a minute, it's not really a new sound, it's an echo. And that can be very confusing. So, what we'll do inside the brain, not the ear, inside the brain, we'll say this is an echo and just pretend that the first sound that we heard was the only sound we heard and it's louder. So at that point, you can no longer discern between the dits and the das. There's an exception to it. The echo suppressor stops working around 1500 cycles. One time, as an experiment, I changed the frequency of the CW I was listening to 1700 cycles. And I was listening to 75 word per minute code. And I sat there and I couldn't copy anything, but I knew what he said.
That's
My
that's
brain was
crazy.
copying it.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. Where did you learn about this? I mean, we have a lot of people out there interested in Morse code and even some of these more complicated and in-depth, the science behind it. Where did you learn about this?
Well, I'm a retired school teacher, and
Oh,
we
okay.
learn about this stuff. And people who have dyslexia are going to have difficulty copying code. Dyslexia can affect hearing as well as vision. And in some dyslexics, they can't discern between identical sounds. And the Haas effect is what you might liken it to, even at 10 words a minute. It
Oh,
can't copy Morse at all.
very
Other
interesting.
dyslexics will find they run up against a barrier, and the barrier is, in effect, that they can't discern the dits and das. This can happen at any speed.
That's fascinating. I really learned something today. That's great. You mentioned that you were a school teacher. Why don't we jump into that real quick and can kind of give a little bit of background, like maybe your educational path a little bit, your maybe some of your background when you were younger and kind of what you did in your career before you retired.
Yeah, well, I don't know why it would matter to somebody else, but it looked like I was going to be an electrical engineer. And I went to college, Duke University, in electrical engineering, but I couldn't see myself as an engineer. I couldn't see myself working for a corporation and getting transferred from one big city to another, living in one suburb to another. I wanted to choose where I was living. So I cast about, and I noticed that our university owned an oceanographic research vessel, a 115-foot ship down at the coast. And I asked, how do you go out on that? Well, if you major in ocean biology or ocean geology, you get to go out on it. I said, I can do that. So I
Yeah,
majored
that's great.
in geology and became an oceanographer.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I was an oceanographer for a while, no need to go into it, but I decided I wanted to live out west somewhere. And I captured a school teaching job and moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico in 1969, built our own house, and we've been here ever since.
Okay, great. That's great background. That's interesting. And so, you have a background in education, which kind of is telling even right now. You're very well spoken. Um, and so you also have several interests. I mean, you teach and you had that background, but I know that there's several things that you're interested in. You mentioned contesting, you mentioned SOTA, you mentioned a few other things offline, but you also have an interest in trail running. So I'd like to get into that in a minute before we get back to more of the radio stuff, and kind of tell us a little bit about how that came to be and how that might be may influence or be part of your radio journey or not.
Well, I started running when I was 12 years old, also. My father took me to an indoor track meet at Madison Square Garden, and I was astonished by how fast guys were running a mile. They were trying to break four in the mile. They didn't quite do it. They ran four flat and a couple of tens. but it blew my mind. And so the next day I got home and I decided, well, I wonder if I slow down, how far I can go. And I found I could go a long ways. And nobody else was doing that. I mean, absolutely no one. And so I started, it made me happy. I started doing it. I didn't know anything about dopamine at the time, but I would run 2, 3 miles after school every day. And I just got a kick out of being able to do it, and nobody else could, or nobody else understood that they could. And I got into trail running after moving out here. And one day I was saw an ad for Pikes Peak Marathon. This was in 1979. And I said, oh, I got to do that. And so I prepared for it and went up and ran Pikes Peak, which is 14,000 feet tall. The run is an 8,000 foot ascent across 12 or 13 miles.
Wow, that's amazing. And you said I think I read in your QRZ page or something that you also coached for a little bit the trail running or running in general.
Yeah, my son said, well, he wanted to run with me. He started running when he was about 5 or 6. And so he would run with me. And by the time he was 12, he wanted to race. And he, in fact, twisted my arm and got me to let him run the Pikes Peak Marathon when he was 12, which he did. And so I kind of had to teach myself about actual training because I'd never trained, I'd never raced. I just went out and ran for the pure fun of it. But I had to learn about exercise physiology, and eventually I trained several sub 4 minute milers, several people who qualified for the Olympic trials. They didn't make the team, but they were close.
Yeah,
My son ran on 9 U.S. teams all over the world.
amazing. That's amazing. I bring it up because, believe it or not, there are quite a few trail runners, people who enjoy trail running, who listen to this show, and so they'd be interested to know that. So that's cool.
Well,
Um,
I'd like to know maybe that I ran with Caballo Blanco, uh,
okay.
the subject of Born to Run. I
Oh,
ran with him in 1979 on the Run to the Sun. That started at the beach and went to the top of Haleakala in Maui. That's a 10,000 foot ascent. And then I ran with him again in Copper Canyon. And in fact, when he died, he was on his way to our house and
hmm,
didn't show up. And I had to chase around to see what happened.
wow. Huh.
But yeah, he had told me someday I'll go on a long run and not come back. And that's what he did.
Yeah. Hmm.
And at age 67, I decided it was now or never. I needed to run back and forth, R to R, we call it, rim to rim to rim of the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
So I did that when I was 67.
Oh, wow. And hey, that's great. I've done rim to rim. And I think I've done it probably 3 or 4 times. I never rim to rim to rim, and I've always hiked it. I've never ran, never ran it. So my time, I think my best time rim to rim was like 13 hours or something like that. So I'm sure you probably did that rim to rim to rim to rim to rim in 13 hours, right?
Well, I was 67 at the time. It was 17 hours, but I took 3 hours out for meals, and I scheduled that. I intended to do it.
Yeah.
Stop for an hour, eat, and let it digest, and then keep going. And so I guess my moving time was 14 hours for rim to rim to rim.
That's amazing. That's great. I was never I was always amazed whenever I hike in the Grand Canyon. I backpack there too, and I've been there quite a bit. I was always amazed at the number of people who were older than me by quite a bit, who were very fit and were really enjoying the trail. And there was this lady that I think at the time she had to have been in her 70s. She said she'd done it every year for like 30 years, and so it's just amazing some of the people that what they can do. So I love it. That's great. So then so obviously your knees are in good shape and all that still, and that's why you get out and do the summits on the air stuff, right?
I have 90,000 miles of running on my knees, and they're fine.
Wow, that's awesome.
I suggest there are two things people can do. One is avoid pavement,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and the other is to make sure you're not heel striking.
Huh. Those two things will
Uh,
help.
get that foot under the knee so the knee is slightly bent on contact.
I mean, that's advice for me as well, hiking probably. Good. Okay, well let's move on then to some more ham radio stuff. Let's talk a little bit about, I'm not sure which way to go first because I'm interested in the contesting stuff that you've done, but I also want to talk a little bit about the portable operations. Which one do you think we should dive into first?
I think other folks would be more interested in summits on the air and equipment used to do it.
Okay.
Um, uh, I got started in it almost the same day that New Mexico had its peaks come online. We need to thank Mike KT5KC who did that all that mapping and made it possible. I didn't know anything about it until then. And yeah, my first SOTA peak then, I'm thinking I already had a QRP rig. I had the ATS3, which was the precursor to the mountaintop radio. It had plug-in coils for the different bands. And I thought, well, my problem is I need a battery and I need an antenna. In the closet, I've got a 20-meter dipole. Well, that'll serve for an antenna, but how am I going to get it up? And I thought, well, I'll take this little plastic bottle and I'll wrap the string around it and I'll fill the bottle with water and that'll be my water supply, see? And now that's my weight and I can throw this thing over a branch. So I had one on either end of the dipole. So I get up on the mountain here and here are these trees and stuff. And I recognize that it's not going to unwind as fast as I throw it. So I've got to unwind it before I throw it. So I'm unwinding it down onto the ground and I take this thing and I chuck it in the direction of the branch. Well, the cord that I laid on the ground picked up leaves and twigs and branches, and the whole thing kind of sucked a left and went off the edge of the cliff.
Oh no.
And it unwound as it went down the cliff.
Oh,
So
not quite what you expected.
it took me 30 minutes to fetch it and get it back. And I vowed right then I'm never going to throw the stuff on a SOTA peak to get an antenna up. So my next idea was I'll take this dipole C and I have what's called a Black Widow pole because I've made some moxons using those poles for field day. And I had one, it's a 20-foot pole and it collapses to 4 feet. And I thought, well, I'll put it up the dipole as an inverted V, see? And I have the two legs of the inverted V and the coax, that's three. So that's my guy line at the top of this pole. And so we went up Lake Peak, which is 12,500 feet. We get up there and try to put this thing up. Well, the more you pull on the three legs, the more the pole doubles over and the end is trying to come down.
Yes.
It does not work. You need a much heavier pole if you're going to do that. And
Right.
I decided, well, that's the last time I put up a guide pole. I don't know what I'm going to do, but something different. And I slept on it. And the next day, when I woke up, I had this idea. Well, it has to be where a wire is being fed at the bottom, and the wire goes up the pole and out so that the pole is being pulled to one side. Now, the pole doesn't need to be guyed, it only needs to be braced. And so that was my fundamental idea. And I started researching, and of course, I don't want a random wire. random wire is a bad idea. A random wire is like a dipole where one side is laying on the ground. That's not a good place for an antenna. So what I wanted was a resonant antenna fed at the end. Well, it's hard to feed an end-fed half wave because the impedance is so high. And I did some research on the net, and I found that AA5TB had come up with a tunable device that will take care of that high impedance, and it actually is efficient and works. And so I built a couple of them. Here's one that I built, and I built it into a little case. I also have them built into, let's see here, into dental floss case. And so,
So are you able to open those up by chance at all? So we could
yes,
so we could look inside?
I think so.
I'm interested to see. It's got to have a toroid in there. Oh, yep, look at that. So what we're looking at for those who don't have video is we've got looks like some sort of a transformer toroid and then a few other little parts, but not much to it, right?
Over here is an SWR bridge. It's called the tiny SWR bridge.
Uh-huh.
So that's built right into it. And other than that, there's the toroid and the little tunable capacitor. That's all it is.
There you go. And that's what that knob is the tunable capacitor. Cool.
Yes, because then you can tune the antenna 15 through 40 meters.
Huh. Okay, so you got the tuner built, or at back then you built one, I suppose then, and took it out in the field then.
Yeah, and then the problem was how to multi-band it because it's uh, a resonant antenna, and it's only resonant on the one frequency that you built for. Now, a lot of folks will say, well, you make it for 40 meters, 67 feet long, and it's two half waves on 20, but it isn't really. And the reason is there are only two ends. And for two half waves, you need four ends for
Ah,
the
okay.
four end effects.
Uh-huh.
And so it's not really resonant. And it gets worse if you go to 15 and worse still if you go to 10. It's not really
Really?
resonant.
I'm surprised. I thought, if you had a 40, you'd 10, well, no, 20 and 10 are good, right? That's a 15 and 40 would be with, I think a 15 would be resonant, but no, huh?
Um, it's close, but not close enough. When you feed it on the end, you get like a 3,500 ohm impedance. It doesn't have to be much off for it to be down to 2,000 ohms or 1,500 ohms, and it's no longer matching it.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Well, what'd you do to figure it out then?
Well, the
I'm
first thing was I put little plug-in 2 millimeter banana plugs, and I disconnected at the half wave point for each of the other bands. But you have to put the radio down and go over and pull the antenna down and pull those apart. So I've replaced that with single pole, single throw, tiny micro switches. And that works perfectly well. But still, you have to pull the wire down after you put the radio down and throw the switches. So then I got to thinking, I wonder if I can make a trap for this. And research on the internet at that time, we're talking 2011, 2012, nobody made small traps. And I found out all the traps that were being made were very big, huge. And I found out there's a reason for that. Um, my little traps that I made with toroids, they actually have a maximum impedance around 1,000 ohms is all. That's not very high. The big traps, the commercial traps, they'll produce 75,000 ohms on the set frequency. So in making the little traps, I found you need to make them very close. You need to tune them very close to the frequency of use for them to be effective. Otherwise, RF gets past them, and the wire that's past them detunes the whole antenna. And you can tell very quickly if you make a 20-meter trap and put it on there, and maybe you have 20, 30, and 40, for example, two traps. That first leg ought to be 33 feet long. If it's seeing wire that's past the trap, it'll be shorter because it's getting extra inductance. And I was finding, it seems to tune at 28 feet long, and that's just not right. And so that's when I went to work on some things with the trap. For example, I put as much inductance and as little capacitance as possible on the particular toroid. Anyhow, it works pretty well.
Okay, so the question I have when you were talking about that is, I in my bin right over here behind me, I have a 20 yeah, what is it? I have a 20, 30, 40 dipole that has traps in it that somebody made for me, and here in Arizona it needs to be retuned for some reason, because when he tuned it in Canada, his name is Malin, a good friend of mine. He made it and tuned it there, and it worked fine. He brought it here for some reason, and it's off. And so I have been putting off tuning that for probably 3 or 4 years now. But so I'm wondering, what's the best approach then to, if you've got one that's already made and you just want to, fine tune it? How would you approach that?
Well, yeah, there are all kinds of problems that you could be dealing with. Um, Very little will throw it off. It's an exponential equation that achieves extremely high impedance at a certain length. And as soon as you come off of that, it's detuned and detunes very quickly. So the ground is different. The pole is different. The exact height you have it is different. I don't know which end you're feeding. I feed the end of the vertical. I know some people feed the end of the slant wire. I use no coax at all. I plug the tuner into the radio and the antenna into the tuner, and I hold the radio in my hand, and I'm standing next to the base of the pole. An activation for me is 20 minutes, 30 minutes at most. As soon as people aren't coming back, I'm bored. So,
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah, you need to be very specific with the tuning with the pole. Each pole has a different, if it's a carbon fiber pole versus a fiberglass pole, it's altogether different. Also, no turns around the pole.
oh yeah, yeah, for
As
sure.
soon as you take a turn around the pole, it's completely detuned. That isn't to say it's necessarily very lossy, but it's detuned. I have a, let's see, my pole is 18 inches long to be carried, and it's, I think, 15 segments, and
Uh-huh.
it stretches out to 20 feet. The top of the pole, I put a fishing eye.
Yes.
That's all I use. And I put that on the thinnest segment, and then I put that segment all the way inside the next segment to stiffen it.
Uh-huh.
And then that's everything's in use, you see. And
Right.
this pole stretches out 18 feet. All right, the wire goes through that and down, and it makes like a cord to the bent pole. And I tape the pole about 4 feet from the end of the wire, and about 5 feet up, I tape it to the pole. And then that last little stretch of wire, that's my feed line.
Yeah. I think you have a picture of that, right?
Yes,
We can get to those. You want to do that now? You want to get to some of your pictures?
that'd be all right.
Okay, let's pull
That's
that up.
under. under share, as I recall.
Yep, yep, under share. So while he's getting that, guys, for those of you who are listening, we'll do our best to describe what he has brought to show, and then also you can always go to the YouTube channel and see it if later on if you're really curious. Okay, we're good to go.
All right, very good. Well, uh, you know, sometimes I foolishly think that I'm really clever, and uh, but the truth of the matter is, I spent one whole summer where I would brace the bottom of the pole between rocks or between roots of a fallen tree or between branches of a fallen tree. And that's not always available. It was the second summer before it occurred to me, you know, I could just lean this pole in a bush. That's all I need.
I,
Just
you know
stick it
what?
in the bush.
You're a quicker learner than me. It took me probably close to 8 years and finally seeing somebody else do it exactly that before I'm like, oh yeah, that's probably a better method.
And occasionally there are ponderosa pine trees. And once I had the idea, you just stick it in a bush. I could take the pole, which is 20 feet long, and I can reach up with the pole, and I'm now up 27 feet or so, and I can hook the wire over a branch. And now I've got the vertical going up 27 feet before it goes out.
That
Sweet.
that's smart too. Good.
Now, my wire, after I have a couple of traps in it, is only about 40 feet long.
Huh.
And so half of it is going up the pole. The pole is only supporting 15 to 20 feet of wire. That's all
Oh, that's
on the
great.
horizontal leg. Now, for for the wire, I use either 26 gauge or 28 gauge.
Mm.
And I use Teflon wire because it's stranded and each of the strands is silver plated. So it has a very low resistance. So even though it's very thin, it's not lossy and it easily handles QRP power levels. So that's not even a question. It's very strong with the Teflon coating. That never breaks. For an end insulator, well, I just don't have one. I just tie, I use stranded fishing line. It's 50-pound weight and it's just thread. I don't know if you can see it. It's thread size and it's orange. And I just tie it to the end of the wire and stretch that out. Between the whole thing, there is zero wind resistance. I have no problem setting up in 60-mile-an-hour winds.
That's great. All right. Well, so let's see some more of your setup here. I've got the slide up here where it shows kind of how you have your pole up and where your feed line goes into the radio, and then the bush with that line that you're talking about. Let's advance here and see some other stuff.
Here's an MTR 5, and the battery is oversized actually. The lithium battery is Velcroed to the side. The tuner, you see the yellow thing at the top, that's the matching device. The wires just plugs into that, and that end of the wire has no current on it. It's the end of a half wave has no current, doesn't radiate. So that's my feed line. The two acorn nuts that you see at the base of the radio, that's the Morse code key. One's DITS, one's DAWs.
Yeah.
And it's just a touch paddle that I built in.
How did you
Uh,
manage to do that? Was there some sort of a kit you used, or did you just kind of figure it out?
well, there was a guy in New Hampshire who's a silent key now, who was selling these circuit boards and for touch paddles. And he was actually selling the whole touch paddle. And I wrote him and I said, I just like the miniature board. The board was about the size of a postage stamp.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I'll add the rest. And I power it directly from the radio and connect it directly inside to the radio. And I just had to get those feed throughs so that they were insulated from the chassis. And you know, a touch paddle has a lot of advantages. Uh, it there's nothing that's going to get dirty. There's nothing that's going to get corroded. There's nothing that's going to go out of adjustment in travel.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
that's
I made this folding cover that protects the knobs and all the switches, and then that supports the log. And then this here takes a space pen. I use a space pen because above 10,000 feet, a normal pen won't write. Normal pens depend on atmospheric pressure to function. The space pen is pressurized and sealed. And so I found that out the hard way when I tried to log at 12,000 feet.
yeah.
I tether it because on one of my early activations, I was at 13,000 feet, and I put my pen down on the rock next to where I was sitting. And when I went to reach for it, it wasn't there. And I saw that it had rolled into a crevice between two boulders, each of which was the size of a Volkswagen. There was no way I was going to get it
No
back.
way.
Well,
Yeah,
I had a backup pencil with me, fortunately, but I vowed right then, from now on, I'm tethering my writing utensil.
there you go. Yeah. What other modifications have you made to that particular
Well,
radio?
up here you can see LEDs, and this is a SWR indicator. It's called the Tiny SWR. It was designed by a German ham, and you can get all the parts list on the web. And I made, I don't know, a dozen of them, and I put
Huh.
them in different rigs.
How challenging is it to add the SWR meter?
Well, it depends on who's doing it, I guess.
Yeah, for you, it was not too bad, huh?
I did not find it to be terribly difficult. The hardest part was getting it in and then getting the back of the case back on
Oh,
because it's kind of this space challenged.
yeah, yeah. The touch paddles, I would guess, but I don't know, might have been a little easier than the SWR meter.
It just fits loosely. You know, I put tape on it so it can't short out,
Yeah.
and just ran the wires. And there are three wires for the paddle and two wires for the power source, and two wires for keying the radio.
Yeah.
This is an MTR set up in a similar fashion. Here's the touch paddle.
The
Uh,
original MTR, right?
MTR, this is the 3 band, and this is the battery. Uh, that battery is good for about an hour.
What's the amp hours on it?
I think it was 180 mAh,
Okay.
and the tethered pen for it and a touch paddle. And that's it. Let's go. This is when I was field testing the KH1. I set up on the roof of the rental where I was out in California. When I was field testing the KX2, I built this tray to support the log. And when Wayne saw that I'd done that, and he said, "Well, I can build a log system right into the radio."
Yeah.
As you may know, it has a memory of what you send. And so you send the guy's call sign, and it's also stamped with the time and the band. And so you don't even have to log with the KX2.
Yeah, that's nice. What about on this one? What's the material made out of? Is it metal or is it something else? The log.
The tray
Yeah.
is a piece of aluminum,
Okay.
and I just cut and shaped it, and it mounts on the screw on the side.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
yeah, it worked just fine. Oh, here's another antenna that people might give some thought to. This is also called a half square, but what it is a two-element beam that's bidirectional on this particular sizes are for 20 meters. But this is a 40-meter dipole in effect, and it works on 40 meters as a dipole, has to be suspended from this corner and this corner, but you can readily do it on many SOTA peaks. And you have a two-element vertical beam aimed at Europe if you try. This little tab here in the middle is how you take a 40-meter dipole and tune it for 20 meters.
Uh-huh.
The
What's that?
20-meter signal will go down and back up that stub. And so you can tune that stub for 1-to-1 on 20 after having tuned the overall antenna on 40.
Oh, that's nice. That's interesting. Yeah, I've used one of these antennas several times. Yeah, how often have you used them?
Well, they're more complex to deploy.
Yeah.
So I've used them when I was going to be up there for more than 20 minutes. If I was going to operate the, what do you call it,
Like,
QRP to the field, and you're going to be up there for half a day,
yeah.
that's when I would deploy it. Uh, I got to be known as Mr. Ultralight because I tried to make everything as light as I could.
Uh-huh.
And my entire setup weighs about a pound. And I got to where I could carry it without a pack because the radio would fit in one pocket, the antenna would fit in the other pocket, and I made this little mounting system for the collapsing pole. And so I don't even need a pack. But incidentally, my pack, I don't know if I can show it here.
If you
My
have to
pack
stop
is
sharing your
made of
screen in order,
gauze. Say again?
you'd probably need to stop sharing your screen in order for us to see it very well.
Yeah. All right. We can do that. But let's see if there are any pictures here. These are the traps. And, they're very small. You can get this circuit board on the web. They're two for 75 cents. And they're set up to make it easy to wire the capacitor and the coil, the inductors.
All right, but as you said, those are kind of it's sensitive to
They're sensitive to tune,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, cool. All right.
So that's the entire antenna situation right there.
Yeah, so going back there real quick to the previous picture, that yellow thing, that's the
That's another one of the tuners.
yeah, okay. And it looks like you use a banana plug there to plug in the radio. That's or the
Yeah,
antenna.
you can get these in sets. There's the female and there's the male. They're 2 millimeter. I got them in eBay in a set of a dozen for $3 or
Yeah.
something.
I use my that's how I use my link dipole. I have those I think the same size banana plugs.
Yep. And then I made one that fits perfectly into a sunglasses case.
Look at that.
And I put the tuner in here as well.
And look at that little trap right there. That's tiny.
Yeah, this trap is a little different. It uses a Teflon tube for the winding. And its advantage is that this actually produces a higher impedance. And so it's easier to handle. However, it has less inductance, so it shortens the wire less.
Huh.
So this one is just 20, 15, 20, and 30.
Okay. I think was that your last one? Yeah. So yeah, if you come now share yeah, now let's see that backpack or whatever it was you had there.
This is a trail runner's pack, and it's made of gauze, and the entire pack is 5 ounces. Because I found after a while, aside from water, the heaviest thing I was carrying was the pack.
Yeah.
So, what's the point of getting the radio down to 1 pound if the pack still weighs two?
Right, right. Exactly.
So now the pack weighs 5 ounces, the radio weighs 1 pound, and then of course there's water and a little food. But yeah, that's all I carry, and that's what makes it possible to jog up the hill.
That's great. I understand you know Steve. You've been out with Steve at least once, right? The
Oh,
goat
many
guy?
times,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. How did you get to meet him and what's your relationship with him?
Well, when I was first doing it, not many people were doing SOTA. And Steve had some videos up with his goats, and it doesn't live very far. It's up in Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
So after I got into it, I sent him an email, and we did what we called the Rocky Mountain Rendezvous. And we had Guy, N7UN, and Steve, and myself, and we were doing a bunch of 14ers up there
Wow.
one summer. And by the end of that summer, I had reached mountain goat, and I was the first one to do it in North America. And as more people achieved mountain goat, by the next spring, there were 5 of us who had achieved mountain goat,
Yeah.
and they were all over the country. And I contacted them by email, and I says, let's get together and rent a cabin together in Colorado and do 14ers together. And so we did that.
Yeah.
And so the 5 of us would scatter and do different 14ers and work each other. And also, people were chasing us. And we gave the Rocky Mountain Rendezvous Award to anybody who could work all of us on all the peaks.
That's
And that
amazing.
went to N4EX.
N4EX. So hey, well, he's a well-known guy.
Yeah, he does a lot of chasing.
Yeah. Um, so that's one of the things that intrigued me. So when one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you on the show, there are actually many. You have a very fascinating um, life with ham radio and then outside of ham radio, but uh, you were basically one of the first one. You were the first to get the mountain goat in North America, and then so you were also one of the first to really get involved in SOTA. And so it's changed a lot, possibly, maybe not, but I'm just a little curious to give maybe a few stories, a few anecdotes about what it was like when you went up on a hill. Obviously, there was no soda reflector. I mean, what did you do when you went up on a summit, starting, early on?
In the early days, before there was spotting, it was difficult to get your 4 contacts.
Yeah,
The chasers who were slowly coming online, they had to listen on the frequencies, and you needed to use the frequency that they were tending to listen to, which was 14061. And I guess that's still my habit, to operate on that frequency if the frequency isn't in use. And I remember you could put up an alert that was saying when you would be on or thought you would be on, but heck, you didn't know plus or minus an hour when you might get to the peak. You'd never been on it before.
right,
Now I have a pretty good idea because I've been on most of the peaks in this area, and
right.
I know how long it'll take me to drive there, to get to the trailhead, and I know how long it'll take me to get up. But then I had no idea. And I remember one very frustrating one, down in the southern part of the state. I didn't know I was going there, so I hadn't put up an alert, and found my way and got there. And it was a very difficult climb, a scree slope and across a knife edge. And I finally got there and set up. I called CQ for half an hour before I got an answer.
Wow,
And
yeah,
finally, K7GUD came on and answered me. I said, please put up a spot for me, which he did. And once he put up the spot, then I got all the QSOs.
That's amazing. K7GUD. That name, that call sign is quite familiar. He has been on our podcast, and I actually went on a SOTA summit with him. He's great. I love the guy. He's a good ambassador of the SOTA stuff.
You know, we've had a lot of fun hosting SOTA ops here in Santa Fe. Santa Fe is something of a tourist visitation location. And I think we've hosted between 40 and 50 SOTA ops from all over the country and also from Europe. And that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Another episode where I went up into Utah, and there was a four-wheel drive road that made it well up a peak outside of Monticello there. And I had set up an alert for the next day, but I got there sooner than I expected, and I decided, well, I'll go on up. I have nothing else to do. And so I'm driving up, and by the time I get near the 12,000-foot peak, there's big snowbanks, and I come around a corner, and the wind is 60 miles an hour blowing across. The snowbanks are taller than the car, and I get I'm in a new world, and it's getting dark, and this
Oh
is
no.
freezing up here. And but I'm going to activate it because I'm here.
Yeah.
And we got out, and I climbed over the edge to get out of the wind. So I'm down, tucked in on the other side, and I'm on top of a big snowbank, and I just stick the pole in the snowbank and start operating. And it's in the dark, and it's windy, and it's cold, and I don't know if the car will start when I get back to it. And I hadn't put up an alert. So I'm calling CQ, and I got absolutely nowhere. I
Yeah.
got nobody. So I'm tuning down the band, and I'm answering people. And so I got one to give me a response, and another one, and a third one. And I'm looking for a fourth. And here's a pretty loud signal. And it turns out it's my friend, John, K1JD, except that it's before he moved to Santa Fe, and he was in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
And I could hear him. And he was working a guy in Luxembourg, LX something. And so their QSO ended, and I called John, and John, not understanding I was on a peak and needed a report, says, "Hi, Fred," and turns his radio off and goes away.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Wow. I bet you have give him a hard time about that even today.
Yeah. And I'd like to tell you the story of the best DX
Sure. Yeah. Interested.
from a soda peak. We were on top of Ortiz Mountain, and Ortiz isn't very high. It's only about 7,500 feet. And it was in the spring, and I was on 20 meters, and I'd already worked a bunch of guys. John was up there with me, and he'd finished his activation and walked over to me and was standing next to me. Now I've got earbuds in, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I pulled one of the earbuds out and handed it to him. And so we each had one earbud. And, we've been operators a long time. We can copy stations that other people can't even hear. And so there's a station in there that's calling me, and it's underneath the noise, and it's kind of pulsing up and down. You get one letter, and then it's not there anymore. And I'm copying a letter, and we're looking at each other, and he's copying a letter. And I said, "Wait a minute. I know who that is because I got enough of the letters." I said, "That's UB5FAM." And he's maritime mobile, and who knows where in the world he is. And he always operates QRP from that cargo ship.
Huh.
And so I completed the QSO. We exchanged RSTs, and that was about it. A year later, I get a QSL card from him,
Yeah.
and I have it right here. Here's the QSL card from him. Can you
Uh,
see it?
it's kind of difficult. Oh, there it is. Yep.
All right. He's UR5 FA, not FAM, slash Maritime Mobile. He says QRP station, Ukrainian Maritime Mobile, from the middle of the Indian Ocean.
What?
Yeah,
Wow, that's a long haul.
yeah. He was off the coast of uh, 3B8, Mauritius.
Oh, wow, that's a great one. That's a great DX, man. I mean, who said you can't use a QRP to make contacts, right?
You know, my start in QRP was with the NorCal 40,
Uh-huh.
which was the kit that Wayne produced.
Yes.
It was two watts, 40 meters only.
Yeah.
And it was fun to build. And I thought, what am I going to do with this that's interesting? And so I thought, well, I wonder if I can work any DX with it. Um, I could.
Wow.
And what happened was that I found I could work Europe, even from New Mexico, on 40 meters with 2 watts at their gray line.
Huh.
I had to wait till midnight to about 1:30 in the morning. But I wound up working DXCC with that little radio in about 3 months.
So you have total, like you have DXCC QRP?
Oh, I have DXCC QRP on 10, 12, 15, 17, 20, 30, 40, and 80.
Wow, that's impressive.
I have 300 countries QRP.
Huh. 300 countries QRP.
Yeah,
Wow. You are the walking epitome of yes, you can use QRP to make contacts.
life is too long for QRO.
That's exactly right. Flip it on. I love that. Flip it on its head. That's great.
But my biggest challenge for QRP DXing, uh, it began with a contact on 160 meters. I was got up at dawn to see what I could hear, and CN8WW was coming in from Morocco. Well, it doesn't make any sense because between him and I was sunshine, and that's not going to propagate. I'm hearing him long path on 160 meters. I was stunned.
Wow.
And I gave him a call running a couple of 100 watts, my full station. And he comes right back to me and he gives me 579. And I thought to myself, self, I wonder if he'd hear 5 watts. Now I have a second call sign, W5YA. It's a club station.
Yeah.
And so I use that QRP, lets me work a guy a second time. And so I called him with the W5YA call sign QRP. He came right back.
Huh.
So I'm sitting here saying, I just worked Africa on 160 meters QRP. I wonder if I can get all the continents. So I said, well, North America I've got, that's easy. I wonder what can happen here. So the next one was South America. Um, there was a de-expedition to Easter Island,
Yes.
and everybody was calling him. And I had already worked Easter Island on 160 meters, but I wondered if I could get him QRP. And his signal was pretty strong. And so I'm listening to him, and I thought, there's a whole bunch of guys calling him. My QRP won't get through, but he's not answering any of them. So these are guys who aren't getting out of their backyard. And that's why he's not answering any of them.
Yeah.
I'm hearing him, but he can't. So I'm just going to call him. So I called him QRP with W5YA. He comes right back and he says, Are you QRP? I thought I'd fall out of my chair. How does he know I'm QRP with W5Y? I said, yes. And he says, check my website tomorrow morning for a message to you. And so I've now gotten South America and deep into South America, as well as Africa and North America, of course. And so the next morning I go to the website and here's a spot that says W5YA, click on this. And so I did. And here's the message. He says, before we came here to Easter Island, we were given a luncheon by the team from CN8WW, who the guy says if you're very careful about the direction of how you put out your beverage antennas, maybe you'll work something like this. And he pulled out of his pocket my QSL card,
What?
showed it to the luncheon. And he says, please send me two QSL cards, one for me and one for the team to show the CN8WW guys when we give them a luncheon after this expedition.
Amazing. That is an amazing story. Wow.
So the quest went on. So I knew that the hardest thing to get would be Europe on 160 from New Mexico. It's like impossible running high power. And so a couple of years went by, and there's this spot on DX Summit for R1 FJL. Well, that's Franz Josef Land. And I looked up on the map, and Franz Josef Land is classified as Europe. It's also the closest Europe.
Okay.
And I brought up the gray line onto the screen, and the gray line, this was in the fall, right around equinox, and he was exactly on the gray line, and the gray line just went right along there. And so he was going to be on the gray line for like 3 hours. And I said to myself, this is the time. So I just sat at the rig and monitored the frequency. And I could hear guys working him. I could hear a guy working from Quebec. I could hear a guy working from Minnesota. A couple hours go by and I hear him working into Colorado. And then I started to hear him. And I knew if he reached 5.7 that he could hear me. And his signal came up for a few minutes. And I sent my call sign and got him. And I have
Nice.
the QSL card for it and everything.
Amazing. That's amazing.
So the only thing left was Japan,
Yes.
Asia. And a lot of JAs come through on 160 to New Mexico. I was confident I could get it. And so in the DX ARL DX contest, I got up at dawn, and sure enough, there's a bunch of JAs on there. Can I get one of them to hear me? And so I kept trying them, and I finally found one who was sending question marks in response to my calls. And after a number of tries, it took a couple of minutes, he got my call and we made the exchange. And
Beautiful.
I sent him an email and I said, you were my last continent, and this is the first time anybody has ever worked all continents on 160 meters QRP. Could you please send me a QSL card? He wrote back and said, I can do better than that. I'll send you the audio of your signal.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Amazing. Do you have that up on a YouTube channel or something where people go see
I do
hear it?
not.
Oh,
I do
okay.
not. And I lost it because between then and now, the computer I had it on crashed.
Oh, bummer. That would have been
But I
neat.
lost it. But I listened to him and I could hear my signal porpoising, where you'd get two letters and then it would go away. Then it
Yes.
would come back and you get a different two letters.
Yep. Yep. Very common. Yeah, that happens to me too on some of my DX I've had. It's, you know, who is this person? And what's annoying sometimes is when it's the same letters every time the
Yeah,
cycle comes around.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know what? Believe it or not, Fred, we have gone the distance already. We probably need to start wrapping it up. But if you have anything else that you'd like to share, or any unfinished business, any other thoughts, topics you want to talk about, that we can hammer through those, and then we'll close it out. What do you think?
Okay. Well, behind me is a New Mexico SOTA peak, and it's called Cerro Blanco, which means the White Mountain. And the White Mountain is white because it's marble. It used to be limestone, but it was hit by a meteor 100 million years ago and turned to marble. And so that's a New Mexico peak. And maybe I can find a couple other pictures of New Mexico peaks that I could share.
Sure. And so is that a
Let's
soda
see.
peak or just a regular peak?
That's a SOTA peak.
Huh.
You betcha.
How hard is it to get to that?
Um, the hardest part is the four-wheel drive effort.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of
Um,
peaks like that, aren't there?
there's about an hour and a half hike to get there. Um, I'm it's about an hour and a half hike, but to actually get there, you have to uh, cross a river as well as wind your way between. There's BLM land that you can stay on all the way, but it's you have to know how to get there. Okay, um, that's called Abiquiu Peak, and I'm standing on the starting place, which is about an hour's four-wheel driving in to get to the back side of it. And then the hike goes down and across and up here. It goes up this streak right here, and then a really steep spot into here. And then you can get up there. It takes about an hour and a half to hike it. It's about a 1,800-foot ascent.
Ooh, that's challenging.
That's the New Mexico peak, one of the low ones.
One of the low ones.
This one's in the Sawtooth Mountains. This particular peak, I don't think has ever been activated. I think you could reach it, but it'd probably take all day. This is one of the volcanoes down near Grants, and it's a cinder cone. And you can drive up to the base in here and then battle your way up the cinders to get to the top. And that's a SOTA peak. Yeah, I've done that. It's called Brillante. This one is kind of a spectacular peak. This is Cabezon. Cabezon means the head. And to the Indians, it's the head of the rock monster that the Indian Superman slayed 10,000 years ago to make the land safe for the people to occupy. Um, there is a way to climb this without ropes, goes up through here, comes around and comes right through here, and then there's a short climb, class 3 climb, and then you can get on top. Up on top is a giant triangle, equilateral triangle, which is the Native American symbol for a head. Now, this peak is both higher in elevation and taller than the Devil's Tower in Wyoming.
Fascinating.
This shows Cabezon in the background here, and this is Guadalupe Peak. Both of them are SOTA peaks. To get up Guadalupe Peak, you park down in here, and you have to get your way up through here, and then along this shelf, and then maybe you can get up in here, and then this is very steep talus, hard going. You can get up into here, and then there's actually a route through the rocks, class 2 to class 3, and you can get on top of this thing. I have activated it. This is a SOTA peak that I have not gone up. It can be climbed. You get up here into this shoulder, and apparently there is a route up through here that will get to the top without ropes, but I haven't taken it. Oh, this is Otowi from the river, and Otowi is up above. You go way around and finally get up on top of Otowi. It's another volcanic plug. This one's Cerro Colorado, and all these old volcanoes have one side blown out of them. They all do. There's four-wheel drive. You can get into this area in here, and then you can hike it. It's fairly readily hiked. That's about 7,800 feet. This one is in the Cereus Hills. There are gold mines in here. There's a trail through here, but after that, it's just bushwhacking. And you climb up through here and get across on top. It takes about an hour and a half. This is me on top of Mount Princeton, which is a 14er in Colorado. I was the first activator of this mountain. You can see it's potentially above the clouds.
It's nice that you had those rocks there to put your mast in.
Yeah, it was pretty easy actually to brace the pole. This is in southern New Mexico, and this is another SOTA peak. It's pretty rough bushwhacking to get yourself up here, but we managed it. This is out my window of my house. And this is a SOTA peak.
Wow. What have you?
This is a SOTA peak, and this is a SOTA peak. And then you're looking south out here. There's Mount Taylor is down there, but it's not visible.
You get up every morning, pour yourself a cup of coffee, and then look that way and long for more soda.
Indeed. This is the Pedernal. The Pedernal was made famous by the painter Georgia O'Keeffe. The Pedernal is a mile long and 25 feet wide. So as you go by it, it goes into eclipse. It practically disappears. And then as you continue, it reappears. It's guarded by cliffs all the way around. And there's only one spot where you can get up it. This is called Pyramid Peak. It's near Gallup, New Mexico. It has a very good trail that comes up this side, switchbacks up this side. I like to do that anytime I'm near Gallup.
Not a lot of room on the top, it doesn't look like, because it's shaped in like a pyramid.
Yes, it's true. There's enough room for antenna. Oh, this one. This one was hard to reach because we kept coming up against cliffs. And yeah, we were the first ones to get up here. This is called Starvation Peak. Starvation Peak has a story when the Indian revolt took place in 1680 and the Spanish had to retreat. A group of Spanish from Las Vegas got trapped by the Indians, and they went up this as a defensive stronghold against the Indians, and the Indians just starved them out, hence Starvation Peak. And has always been thought that they must have taken their valuables with them, and they must have buried them up on top. And so treasure hunters have tried to find their treasure and never have. Now, the first time I tried to go up this, I asked a rancher for permission to cross his land to get there. And he said, well, it's okay. He said, but if you find any treasure on the top, we split it 50-50.
Yeah, that's a good
I
deal.
looked him in the eye and I furrowed my brow and I said, 60/40.
That's right. There you go.
So this is another one of the Sawtooth Mountains. We got up this one, and this is another volcanic peak. This is the famous Wagon Mound. You can park down in here, and you can go up this slope right up here, and right here is in the activation zone, and that's where most people activate it. But I found if I went along here, I found a crevice and I was able to get all the way up on top of it. And there's only 3 or 4 who've ever made it to the top. This is Wheeler Peak, 13,100. It's the tallest in New Mexico. And this is the view from Wheeler Peak. It's well above tree line. And I think that's my last one.
Okay. Well, good. It's been a great discussion today, Fred. I appreciate you sharing all these great stories and great information with us. We've had some information on some stuff from the bench and how to operate a little bit, and some of your great success stories with DXCC. And I mean, I think we've covered a lot of ground. I really appreciate you being here. We're going to wrap it up. Stay on the call, and we'll just kind of end things, and then we'll talk on the other side. But with that, I'm just going to say 73 to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for staying around and listening to Fred and his stories. If somebody wants to reach out to you, Fred has a question. You good on the QRZ page for the email?
Yes, yes. And
Okay.
thank you for having me. And I'm glad to share some stories and hopefully stimulated somebody to get out there and activate some peaks.
Great, great. Okay, thank you, Fred. Thanks for coming. 73, everybody.